Recording in progress.
I'd like to welcome everyone today. I'll take 30 seconds for myself and then another minute or two after that. For those of you that don't recognize me, I was reminded on the way in, I don't have my lid on today. I have a jacket on today and my comfy shoes. So my response was, I have another thing after this, and those folks don't know all of who I am and what I do. So I was going lidless today. So appreciate everybody making comment on it. Behind that is I was talking to some producers on the way down. And reminded myself leaving the house how dry my dirt road was. And if we all remember, just a couple of days ago, we were complaining because there was too much rain. And so it's the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh, and it rains on the just and the unjust. So whatever portion of that you fall into, there you are. So I appreciate everybody showing up today. And I guess we'll start with introductions and jump on the wall with Anusa if you want to take off.
This is IT Department of Agriculture. Blake Walters, Department of Agriculture.
Wade Hodge, Department of Agriculture. Russ Summers, Department of Agriculture.
Cherry Ellis, Department of Agriculture. Andrea Collins, Department of Agriculture. Caitlin Bennett, Department of Agriculture.
Dan Douglas, Department of Agriculture.
Abe Massey, Department of Agriculture.
West Ford, Department of Agriculture.
Cynthia Evans, Department of Agriculture.
Kenneth Reagan, Department of Agriculture.
Cindy Taylor, Department of Agriculture. Caitlin Phillips, Department of Agriculture.
Cody Burke, Arkansas County. Robert Childers, Poultry Federation.
John Niles, Department of Agriculture.
Kevin Simmons, Department of Agriculture.
Tommy Wren, Livestock and Poultry Commissioner from Piedmont County.
Bruce Mallett, Columbia County. Tyler Davis, Commissioner, Little River County.
Dan Wright, Commissioner from Scott County.
Bill Hewitt, Commissioner from, from Washington County.
Patrick Fisk, Department of Agriculture.
Lastly, Marcus Creasy, Commissioner from Cleveland County, and the guy that didn't hold his hand up but got voted in chairman. So, anyway, we appreciate everybody showing up today, and hopefully we'll have a good meeting. Some good topics today. I would like to sideline us for just a minute. I put a 1A on my agenda for today and was going to call on Patrick. He'd like to make a special presentation real quick.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman. Just wanted to take just a moment to recognize the special guest that we have with us today. Secretary Ward, if you have a second. We have a supervisor here that's been with us for 44 years. Kenneth, can you come up? Riggins? Wow. Was it 1979?
78.
78. I was 12 years old. Kenneth has been, I'll tell you, I'm going to give the floor to Blake here in a minute, tell some stories, but we could be here all day telling some stories about Kenneth. He is probably one of the most dedicated, hardworking men I've ever known. He will get the job done. Just give you just one quick story. We had a meeting early one morning, like we were supposed to be here at 8 o'clock. Kenneth lives, what, 3.5 hours away? 3.5 hours. And the night before, there was a storm that came through. Big tree landed on his road. He couldn't get out. So most people would have called and said, I can't make it. I got to cut this tree down. He gets up at 2 o'clock in the morning, cuts his tree up, and is here by what, 7:30. So he is absolutely dedicated in what he does. He will not stop until the job is done. So if we give him a task and somebody, he has 2 or 3 of his employees, they're going to be there at midnight until the job is done. So you just don't see that much anymore. And I just want to thank you very much for your time here, for your dedication. You're going to be missed. You're a huge asset. That's what we do appreciate it. So this is a small recognition. This has been signed by the governor, recognizing his years of service here. Signed by the secretary as well. Can we get a picture? If you don't mind?
Commissioners up here, take it down on.
Yes, please. Yeah, why don't you get right here? No, mind, though.
In the anchor corner. I'll look better in the picture.
You know, I'm good, you without a hat.
Don't say it. Yeah. Turn it sideways, look thinner, or have it.
And with that, I'm gonna turn the floor over to Blake for just a minute to, kind of recognize, the year that he has been with us and some of the story.
I'll try to keep it short, because like I say, I could talk a long time. I can't say thank you to Kenny enough. I've been here about 5 years. I've learned so much from him. He's an amazing man. He's been a mentor and a good friend while I've been here, and like I said, he's helped navigate the waters of what we call, livestock, poultry, and dealing with animal disease issues. Before I forget, I'm gonna thank his wife Kathy. She's not here with us today of 50 years, because she has tolerated a lot over the years with Kenny, keeping long hours, and even driving with him in the night at samples. We got the people in here that's met Kenny at the gate in the middle of the night to drive samples of Little Rock. And back in the day when sales were so hot and heavy, Kenny's always got a little figure, he says, and I can't ever keep it right, but was it 10 sales in 7 days is what you used to work?
On the over federal level sale barns, I had 9 sales every 10 days.
Okay, that's what it was. But anyway, if you do some quick math, Kenny's in the million tag club. He's put in over 1 million tags. I did some rough math the other day. There's no doubt how many gallons of blood he has drawn from animals. Thousands, thousands of tests. Kenny's been here for a lot of firsts too. He was here when we had anthrax. He was here when we had AI the first time. He's been here with, sorry, I'm gonna pull my notes out because I'm gonna forget. I'm sorry, y'all. There were just so many things I'm trying to keep myself. He's also worked the largest special cow sale we've ever had in Arkansas. I think they had right at 2,000 cows at a sale barn. That's a pretty good special cow sale. And then also he was first to get into the foaming and other things that's been brought about. The biggest thing too that I'm gonna miss with Kenny is just he makes it easy for his area. Whether it's talking to one of his fairs or anything like that, and they call me with a question or an issue they need worked out, all I gotta do is say, well, do you know Kenneth Riggins? Oh, yeah, I know Kenny, I'll call him. I was like, yeah, so it's took care of. But I'm definitely gonna miss that. Obviously, a lot of y'all are familiar with it, but Kenny survived the brucellosis wars. He was a big part of eradicating that disease. Kenny is actually the last inspector we have that's been on an infected herd. So that's kind of the end of the era on that. Kenny will tell you that we need to keep watching that because we do move some bison around and they do come into North Arkansas. And then just also, sorry, I'm stumbling around. I'm just trying to keep this short, but tell everything. Obviously, Kenny is a man of many talents. Like I said, he's got a hard outer shell. He is one of the toughest guys I know, but he's got a big heart. He'll fight a circle saw for any of his guys, and they know that. He's bent over backwards to help any of his guys or anything we need. If me and Patrick needed something in the middle of the night, he would be there, like Patrick said. Sorry, I'm going back to my notes, y'all. I'm messing this speech up. I was gonna do a better job, I promise. But one funny on Kenny, he said out of his career, he said the closest he ever come to getting whipped was at Marple. He told these 2 women they couldn't sell something. He said he about got his butt kicked. But talking about how Kenny has been so dedicated, and I know I'm just gonna go ahead and tell this story like it is, or there's nothing to hide, but one thing, I was here about 1.5 years when we had the floods in 2019. Kenny was up all night passing a kidney stone, and he finally passed it at 3 o'clock in the morning, and at 8 o'clock, he was in Dardanelle ready to work on hogs in the river. So if that tells you anything, he doesn't back up from a challenge, and he's not going. And like said, we're gonna miss that, because he just handles things. Talking a little bit about how dedicated Kenny is to the job. Anytime you talk to him very long, he's gonna talk to you about the industry, how important it is feeding the world. And I'm not kidding. This is actually is me had these conversations. And the disease threats, and he'll tell you right now, we need to be watching FMD, ASF, and we already know we're watching AI, but he might even throw in there, we need to be watching these damn spent hens that's running around. That's how you're gonna say it. Anyway, I'm just lucky, the Lord's blessed. I'm glad Marcus said that earlier. Kenny was here for a reason. It was to help me when I was wet behind the ears coming into this, because it was a lot. And I just appreciate him. Like I said, I had a leak at 2 o'clock in the morning. Kenny's kind of guy to come help me fix it, and he is taking up for the guys. I won't take any more of your time. That's pretty much it, but just thank you, Kenny. Like I say, we know you've done and been through a lot. And like I say, Kenny's been the glue in the field when times were good, times were bad at this agency. And I'm not trying to focus on bad, but I'm saying everybody has highs and lows. So thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, Patrick, I was 6, so 78.
I graduated high school.
For sure, the dedication that Kenny's put into it is, 44 years, my friend. I don't think kids these days that are coming out of college will spend 4 years at any one location, much less 44 dedicated to the work of the people. So thank you very much. Okay, let's move to number 2 on the minutes. Consider those. Be under your tab.
Motion to approve.
We got a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Good. Agency reports. Looks like Mr. Dan Douglas is the first one in the hopper today.
All right, good morning. It's good to see you all here today. They always say they save the best for last. So why do I always go first in these things? I'm trying to figure that out. But anyway, I'm glad to report, happy to report today, we have started inspecting state inspected meat in Arkansas. The 27th of February, we started with ASU in Jonesboro and JACO in Hope. Since then, ASU hasn't slaughtered anything else. Okay, so whenever their meats class is not operating in the spring, it will in the fall, they'll pick up then and get busier then. JACO is processing state inspected product 1 day a week. Okay. Now that doesn't seem like much. So what are my inspectors doing the rest of the time? Well, they've still been training. We currently have both our inspectors trained for compliance too. Well, what is compliance? One thing, when we take over the state meat inspection program, we also take over the annual inspection of the custom exempt plants. Once a year, the exempt plants have to be inspected to make sure they're running a sanitary operation and following all the rules and regulations that apply to them. Our inspectors are trained on that. And now they're going around doing those inspections. And they're met with smiles because USDA is not doing them anymore, okay? We're doing them. And we have had several, at least 3 other plants that once we come in and say, hey, we're doing the state inspection, the program is up and going, the owners of the plant say, we considered going USDA inspected in the past, but we'd heard horror stories. And we say, we're here to help you make sure that you produce a wholesome, safe food product. We're not here to beat you up, but we want to make sure you're doing it right and know what to I'll give you an example. Some of these custom processors have been buying their labels with the safe handling instructions off the internet. You know, save some money, no problem. But when they get them in and put them on the product, they don't look, it says on the bottom, inspected and passed. You can't do that. So we've sent an email out to the processor saying, hey, watch out for this. We don't want to come in and have problems. So let's educate and inform. And those processors out there that are learning this and hearing this and seeing the way we work with them, they're saying, hey, we want to look into going state inspection. Okay, so we're building good rapport with the processors out there. So I look for more plants. In fact, I got a call just a while ago from a plant in Atkins that is wanting to go state inspection. So I think the program will grow. We've got really good inspectors out there and we're doing a good job. And hopefully here in the future, we'll see state inspected product available where you live. Okay, any questions? Okay.
Good job.
Thank you,
Good job.
Judge. All right, next one up, accounting, Mr. Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Good morning, members. On the financial report for the third quarter financial report, we're pretty much where we need to be around this time of year. We finished with a fund balance of $12,860,877. Expenditures total $8,029,493, or 60% of the operating budget. And with the third quarter being 75% of the year, spending 60%. We're in a good position going into the last quarter of the fiscal year. I don't anticipate any issues in our operations going into the last quarter of the fiscal year. Operation will continue as planned. And that is it on the financial report.
Commissioner, any questions?
Might be if I could see it.
I'm having to wear more.
Yeah.
Okay, no question. Thank you, sir, appreciate it. Third one down, animal health.
You have a report there. I'll kind of hit some highlights and then go over some questions you might have. And then there's addendum to that. We got caught into the tornado response. I thought I'd give you an overview of what happened there on that. But Dr. Brown is on loan to Dan in the meat inspection. He's getting trained along with the inspectors and will handle the veterinary public health aspects of the meat inspection program. So he is in Missouri now.
It will be next week.
And so he's off doing that. Some highlights off of the report there. We do have a new data management program that we're working on, going through training, getting that stood up. It's designed to bring all of our workflow into one dashboard. And so we can see things happening live and build our own reports and see what's going on at any time. It does have an electronic CBI component that we'll be working on. It'll be free to the veterinarians of the state where they can log in, fill in their CBIs and submit them right there. And we don't have to email back and forth. We can see them happen as they go. So excited about that. It should go live in a matter of weeks as opposed to months. It depends on how our training goes. Now, some of the other students are in the class with me and it's like, this is a lot of buttons to click. The veterinary loan repayment program, you can see the deadline was April 17th. So it'll be a while before they get reviewed and see if we have any more awardees for this year. So that's moving along. The animal disease traceability roadmap was updated. That's kind of a significant thing because it's a 3-year plan for how we're going to comply with the federal regulations for animal identification. That one, it was a moving target because it's still in public comment. It's supposed to come out in April. For the comment period, that's the part 86 of the CFR. It should be through public review, and we're waiting to see what it will say. You will have RFID tags or else, and we're waiting to see what that or else is. Any questions on that aspect? Administrative functions. Emergency response, you can see some grant funds have been secured to make our preparedness increase. And one of the things that we're working on, our vet service partners help us in the high path responses. It's a unified command. Many of those have retired. 3 key personnel in that served in our incident management team. So we're working to replace those and also expanding our own state response. There's kind of an overarching program, especially from Homeland Security, for each state to become as self-sustaining and sufficient in emergency responses as you can get. And so we're working on getting our people trained to fill in the spots in the incident management team so that we can get as close as we can to running these by ourselves. So that's a key thing that we're working on continually. Questions on that section? For diseases, can't believe I left this one off here, maybe because I was waiting. High path influenza, I've already knocked on wood and I'll knock on it again, that we went all cleared status this month. We had 1 backyard flock that was fulfilling its 120-day fallow period. So we have cleared the commercial product in the 2 backyards. So we are absolutely clear from high path AI. That's the status that we get. Unfortunately, there are trading partners that can still choose not to take our birds, even if we have backyard birds that are impacted. And so we've been working on that to see if we might change their ideas on that. We did have a positive Brucella canis kennel that we worked with. That has been taken care of. Trick continues to rear its ugly head. And we are focusing as an agency on the female movement. I think that's a point there because you can sell the cattle, they look fine, they look great, but they can still be the carriers of trick. And then somebody they'll go through the sale barn. We're trying to get those under control. And Kenny, I'm gonna miss your energy on that. Because he has been the champion for trick control in the state of Arkansas. So I've learned a few tricks.
So,
Yes, sir.
can I ask a question? So on the trick part, we're testing any bulls that are coming into the state, correct? They have to have a trick test, but we don't test females that come into the state. Is that right?
Correct. There's not a good test for that.
Okay,
There's been some research into that. It's just, you have to take a cervical sample. And if you're doing that, you run the risk of aborting that cow should she be pregnant.
right,
So it's just not a good test for that.
okay,
And so typically what we do, and it's just, there's probably some research to support this, but it seems to be 120 days. If you let them be sexual rest for 120 days, they can clear that infection themselves.
Okay.
So,
Bulls is, virgin bulls under 24 months. That's what we don't test that, right? Virgin bulls under 24 months are not required to be
correct.
tested.
Is it 24 or
It's
18?
18. That's what
I
they
think it's
do.
18.
Virgin bulls 24, but obviously if we can prove they've had exposure, then they're not virgin anymore.
Right.
so is this in just commercial cattle or registered cattle or both?
It's all across the board.
Okay,
It crosses fences. But I think, we're at 3 new cases, and then an old case just reared its head this morning, so.
Relapse on the same location.
and are we catching these at the farm or the livestock market? Are they bringing these cattle across state lines and selling them at livestock market, or are they buying them as, to reproduce, or how, what is most of the case, you know?
On the bulls, most of those are tested at the barns.
Okay.
And so we have a good system in place that any bull that comes in there, you're either gonna take them to slaughter, or you're gonna get them tested. And when they're tested, then the inspectors put them on quarantine. And I guarantee you, they're adamant after Kenny's training, and Andrea and all those supervisors that are out there following up on those and make sure they get closed. Kind of the last case that I got to work closely with on Kenny, there was a set that came through the bull pop positive. And it was a special cow cell, and they'd already been distributed, and that man by himself got a rope around all those animals, tracked them down where they were. And some of them going into Oklahoma, so we had to let Oklahoma know that, hey, send some cows. But that gave them a chance to get those cows out on bulls just yet, don't mix them. So the system's working.
Good.
Getting better and better as we go along, and put that more emphasis on controlling things.
Those 3 herds that are new, were they regularly testing the bulls, or they random? Do they have any kind of, where?
Those showed up at the barn. One of them, Cindy, there was one that was out of state, wasn't it? Was Missouri, that was a Missouri, but it was an Arkansas bull that sold in Missouri. And they got the test back to us. And so Cindy's working really hard to capture all of those out of state tests. So that's the report on that. March went out with a roar like a lion. So at about 4 o'clock, we came out of the basement of this building because we saw how it went through to get the stage. So just kind of a brief overview of what happened. The overview is the ag department stood up and worked on that from very many aspects of the ag department. And so that's the depth that we have. But there is a document out there. It's the state emergency response plan. And in that, it says that livestock and poultry will coordinate animal responses and disasters. And so that was the document that was governing us through that. And so we didn't do everything. We did a lot ourselves, but we coordinated the efforts related to anything animal in this. And so that evening, our power was out. And so we set up a base station in my truck out in the parking lot and started getting calls immediately. Because I have a network of emergency response folks were calling me, what do you need? Let me know. I'll volunteer. Right off the bat, we had volunteers to respond from the veterinary medical side. That's DVMs and CVT. Then started getting information that some of the clinics had been hit. And so we shifted over to focus to calling those clinics. Do you need help? Do you have to evacuate? One clinic had to evacuate. Do you need help with those animals? No, we have it. So we set that up and then turned our attention to emergency care for that night and started calling emergency hospitals, clinics, getting that arranged. I haven't been able to find where it's written that veterinarians are first responders to animals in a disaster. It's in our state plan, but I want to see where it's coming from. I've got to go back and read my oath again and see where it says, but supposedly veterinarians are first responders. And so they stood up all across that corridor of that tornado and were taking care of animals. And in the assessments that we did by phone and on the ground, I would visit with the vet clinics. And when I went there, they were actually treating some of those and they were treating for free. And then there's ways that they can be reimbursed. And so we pushed out a letter, the ag department pushed out a letter through the examining board. Please stand up, take care of these animals. We'll seek recompense for you through the foundation or FEMA dollar. So that was a good response from the veterinary community. And then it progressed on through the weekend, handling these animals, finding those needs, coordinating efforts, making sure that the animals were taken care of. And so we split that up into shelter, animal shelter, and animal care. They're kind of two different things. Some of them need both at one place, but overall, the entire response was maintained at the local level. So you start at the local level, you overwhelm those assets, you go to the state level, and then we go national. And so we kind of set up, we had a quick conference call with our national partners in case we needed them. Don't need you there. We just want to make sure you're available on what we've got going on. Let us do some assessment. So all of the counties stood up and we handled most of the needs so far with mutual aid from county to county. I'm trying to learn the system of can we go county to municipalities? Because a lot of the counties don't have county shelters and we need some more room. We're working on today, I've got one task to go back to today is Jacksonville Animal Shelter is overwhelmed. And so we've got to move animals out. In connections with, y'all talk about the flood, that's actually how I got this job. We met each other at the flood in Conway with animal sheltering. And so with that network that I already had established, I called on that. I said, how many animals can you take? I'll take all the cats you got. And so we activated that network and start moving these animals around and take the pressure off of that local animal control. Blake, Corey, there was a call came in, we need food. How much you need? A couple of pallets. We went to Petco, bought pallets. Corey loaded up the skid steer and took it and delivered it. And so as we went through that operation and incident management, a request comes in and then you pass it down into it's a task. And so that was the most important people is that boots on the ground, go get some food, take it here. And so that's the depth of the ag department. I think, who else helped? If I start naming names, I'm gonna forget people, but we went all the way into plant industries, grabbing people, hey, can you go help do this? And so the ag department, we lit up a call line that was based on our sick bird call that was already in place. We have a cadre of staff that takes sick bird calls. And we rolled that through our forestry dispatch, which is manned 24/7. So that was a perfect fit. What assets do we have? Can we use those? Yes. So we hooked that up. And then calls would come through there and they would pass it to trained staff to handle those calls already. So there was a lot of activity. We went through this, very proud of the ag department that went through that and responded to those. And it's not quite over yet. We learned in that the Red Cross had set up a shelter and they had 2 pets in there. And so we had to tend to those and make sure that they were well and good in there. Some of them needed some veterinary care. I called, as well, who's your regular vet? Called them, says, hey, have you seen this animal long enough? Their medications got blown away in a tornado. And they said, yes, we can fill those. We got those, took them back to the shelter. There's some arthritis medicine for that dog. One dog didn't have its vaccination, so I called on yet some more of my colleagues. There used to be bumming around, says, hey, I need some vaccines. And so they just, here, take this, didn't charge a dime for it. And so Kevin and I went out and vaccinated the dogs at the shelter. So just to say that, and I'll stop there, the ag department stood up on that and fulfilled the duties. The state emergency operations center got stood up. We serve, the ag department serves as ESF 11. It's essential functional 11, and that's everything animal. It also includes fire is in there with us. And so that's the fire response. And Blake is ESF 11, I am, and then Robert
Is ESF 4.
is ESF 4. So they put us 2 together because we're from the ag department. So, but it was a very awesome response. It's still going on. And it was just, I was like, Patrick, we need this. And we called other departments, divisions, and fill those needs. So it was a very good response so far. Any comments? Follow-ups? Okay.
Next up on the list, PIP.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. You got a copy of our totals for the quarter. We added a column to kind of show where we ended up in the end of 2022. And then you can also see we've added what we have done year to date for January and February. As far as the report for NPIP, from the months of January through March, completed 2 company inspections, 1 processing plant inspection. There were 8 hatcheries inspected, completed 3 biosecurity audits and 2 NPIP lab audits. I'm proud to announce that all hatcheries have been, inspected. We've lacked one with the samples being completed and they're in the laboratory now. So once that is completed, we'll have everything for 2022 completed and we'll have a quick turnaround to start the 2023 process of hatchery inspection. We still continue to respond to, the backyard sick bird calls, keep our guard up. Dr. Knowles mentioned we have the sick bird call line, where folks can call in and report, their birds are sick or if they've seen sick birds. And we respond to those and collect samples and test those. Thankfully, all have been non-detect to date. We have a pretty good interest in our subpart E, our small flock or backyard flock owners. Right now, we are sitting on 116 small flock owners in the state. There are 3 or 4 still pending bacteriology salmonella testing. Once they're done, I think we'll be around 120 or so with our small flock owners. Since I've been in this position, it's bounced back and forth between 115 to 120 participants in that program. We do have our PT, our form typhoid testing school coming up. The dates for those, we have one here in Little Rock is going to be May 11th for commercial and May 12th for the private. Then we'll have one in Fayetteville the following week. The 18th is going to be the commercial, and the private. We're still waiting on confirmation for the Batesville location in school, but kind of figure it will be around that same, maybe the following week, or maybe even be within one of those weeks, like or Monday or Tuesday. NPIP has added another authorized lab. This lab is OK Foods in Fort Smith. They were an NPIP laboratory in the past. They were doing blood testing for AI mycoplasma as well as salmonella testing. They did close their blood lab. I think 2019 is when they closed the blood lab, but they left their salmonella lab. So they wanted to be added back. They aren't currently doing salmonella testing for NPIP. They're doing it on the food safety side from the processing plant with the bird rinses and washes and things like that. But they still want to have the capability to be NPIP or do the NPIP salmonella testing because from the way I understand it, there's going to be a push from FSI to catch salmonella at the farm to the processing plant level. So they have the capability to do the NPIP testing on environmental samples at the farm level. In late February, I attended the live bird marketing system in Tucson, Arizona. Here in Arkansas, we really don't have a typical live bird market, but flea markets, swap meets, exhibition that falls under a live bird marketing system. So it was a really informative meeting, especially on some of those live bird markets like in New York, where you go in, you pick out your bird and they process it for you right there, where they had an outbreak of AI and they had to trace back to where the birds came from. And then as it was one little small entity here in New York, grew into 6 or 7 states where these birds had been brought into a distributor. So each state got involved where they came from and had to go back and make sure that the birds had been tested and were tested negative. So it's a lot of states working together to accomplish that little control zone there in New York. Just a quick update on HiPath AI. As of yesterday, we were sitting at 819 confirmed blocks. That's 323 commercial. This is for the whole outbreak. 323 commercial, 496 backyard flocks. We still have 47. We have 47 states affected. We're 58.65 million birds depopulated to date. And wild bird detections are 6,542, 49 of which are detections from Arkansas. The last detection in Arkansas was in January. Just for comparison, where we sat last time when we met, we were 717 total flocks, 305 commercial, 411 backyard. 44, we haven't added a state in that outbreak, or as far as the outbreak there, we're 57, just almost 58 million birds depopulated and about 5,500 wild bird detections.
Didn't they put a dollar figure on that 58 million birds?
That's not yet. It's just too early into it.
Yeah,
It gets pretty complicated with, You have imports and exports that are affected by it, so there's a lot of things to consider, and that is USDA. those
And
come
the
together.
indemnity for the bird itself is real, it's not insignificant, but the cost for depop and disposal is really where the cost runs up. In 15-16, when we had 53 or 54 million birds destroyed in the Midwest, and it was $1 billion. And just as a point of reference for any poultry person in this room, 2022 is when the outbreak started. May of 2022, there were 51 cases in commercial birds. April, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. March, there were 51. April, there were 106. In May, there were 18. So if history repeats itself, and thank goodness we're a little bit through April, but this is the peak time. And so, we cannot let our guards down, whether it's backyard, contractor, integrator, whoever. It's very, very important, state, whoever, it's very important that we realize, excuse me, we're not out of the woods by any means. So.
As a producer, we're always village at this time of year and in the fall.
Kevin, in Dr. Niles' report, he said that we were expecting an uptick. Is that just stating that we're going to always remain vigilant, or is there a particular reason that we're expecting an uptick?
We're always gonna remain vigilant, but it kind of goes with the migration. And that's kind of when the hot spots, kind of rise up. But we're from the state side, we're always gonna be on our toes, and respond to anything. So I will report, and I don't want to jinx it, but as of yesterday, the last detection was on the 5th of April. So I won't call it a lull, but I mean, at least we've had a few days here where we haven't had NVSL confirmed hot path detection. So hopefully that trend
And that
continues.
may be the first time since February 22.
Yes, I
We've
believe it.
had that long.
One of the things we always watch is where the geese are coming from during the flyways. Do we know how it's been down south? Has there been an uptick in AI down south lately?
No,
Because last year is the uptick in Canada and they all came back down.
Yeah, and it's the snow geese that,
Yeah.
that got literally knocked out of the sky, and so, excuse me, Kevin, you will. There were a couple of backyard flocks that were in the Delta, and they're right close to the Arkansas River, and so we've ramped up our surveillance. And I wanted to say this while Russ was in here, because if it costs, we're gonna test it, and then Dr. Summers and his crew gets the brunt of that, because they're the ones that have to stay here and do that. And so far, we've managed to get that done, to ramp up our surveillance and make sure, because its speed is of the essence. We've learned that one is catch it fast, get it handled fast. But it's anything along a flyway is what we're ramping up about, anything in contact with wildlife whatsoever. And so that response is somebody's got to go get those. And then with the supervisors here, there's Andrea. We have a system in place that we wanted to run automatically. This is, hey, we have a sick bird call, and you don't have to wait on the state veterinarian, that we have the inspectors and the supervisors now just go run it by yourself. Don't wait on me, don't wait on anybody, just get it. Sick bird call, go get it, we're gonna test it. And so we can make that call ourselves. Yes, I always talk to the federal counterpart, and most of the times they agree, sometimes, well, I don't know, I think we're good. If we talk, we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna err on the side of caution here, because we've got federal dollars to pay for those, and just because it's free, we're not running it just because it's free, it's because we want to keep that vigilance up and not let our guard down. So, just worry about those wild birds in the flyways. And give our lab some credit.
to that point, though, I'd like to interject. I would say that the entire state of Arkansas is a flyway.
Yes.
So we can't, I mean, yeah, there are 4 flyways, but there are a lot of sub flyways. So, the whole state and the case that we did have in commercial chickens in Arkansas was really not in a flyway per se. So, but it was around water.
And it's, sometimes people question why we're running those, and it gets processed and addressed. Those two were in that area, in the Delta area, we had a positive there before, so we responded to that. Also, this virus is changing very fastly. It can evolve in a generation, not adapt, evolve in a generation. And so it's not as deadly as it used to be, so you don't have the high mortality. And so that's why it's, any sick birds basically around here are gonna get tested. And yes, especially if they have a really high peak in mortality, but this virus is not as bad as it used to be. It's not killing birds like it used to be. So just because we don't have a high mortality, we're still gonna run the test.
Kevin, I've got a question. So the poultry industry's huge in my area, mostly broilers, but you know, in the last 5 years, I've seen a huge uptick in, you know, these vital houses, these egg houses, and these birds are outside and they're fenced off and I'm sitting here listening and I would think that would be, they're outside and that's a flyway. And, you know, those birds could contract something more so than the broilers could, because they're enclosed. And so educate me, do we test those birds? Because I know that when those birds when they're done with them, I'm seeing a lot of them being sold, you know, that somebody will come by and say, well, I'll take 500 of these. And then I see them down the road and they're $5 a piece. So.
It's your spin bird.
Yeah, so educate me on that process. Because I get questions. I mean, you know, obviously I've got a lot more broiler houses than I do vital houses, but it seems like every time I turn around, they're building another house. And so.
The table egg industry in Arkansas is growing.
Okay.
And it is for the more of the free range organic type where they have access to the outdoors. There is a classification for that under NPIP. It's the US H5H7 monitored program. NPIP is voluntary program, so not every single one of those egg companies participate, but we do have several in the state that do participate. That is the requirements there are for pullets when they move, it's 11 samples per flock, tested negative for AI 21 days prior to movement. For the layer flocks, they have to test 11 samples from each flock one time in a 12-month period. And then for the black meat classification, it's 11 more samples 21 days prior to the movement.
So my question is, I mean, with the poultry industry being as large of an industry as what it is in Arkansas, the largest, if you look at beef or row crop or anything, why wouldn't we make those folks be tested? I mean, you said some weren't, well, why wouldn't all of them have to be?
Because NPIP is voluntary.
Yeah.
In like I said, the table egg layers that are coming into the state and becoming more and more popular. I think they're learning the process of NPIP, and many of them, once they finally realize the benefits of NPIP, are getting on board with the NPIP testing. So, like I said, there's nothing there. The meat type chickens, they have understood the benefits of NPIP for years. Some of these, I hate to call them mom and pop, but the smaller table eggs that are going in and buying these older broiler houses and converting them into free range, they're learning, they're asking questions and trying to figure out how to get involved. I actually just had a call with a company this week inquiring about becoming NPIP. So
Okay, good. Because it could be a detriment to our, you know.
absolutely.
Right now, there's not a regulatory requirement that they have to be regularly tested.
Okay,
We usually respond on issues with health issues or by dying birds, we'll get a call on that. The challenge with some of our free range outfits is they have a different business model. The grower actually owns the birds
right.
and the feed. He owns 100%. He's just got a contract with the company to buy the eggs, and that's it.
Okay,
That's the challenge that we're seeing with these spent hens is they do some of the free range, they will require that they go to a spent hen plant, but they just don't have those contacts. And so they'll end up selling them on the highway, like you said.
right.
And that's been presenting a huge challenge for us. We've got to get a handle on that for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, with 3 boys, I thought about buying some, because it's a lot cheaper than sending Ann to the grocery store, but I didn't, but anyway, I just, if I've got 500 broiler houses, then I've got 10 of those type houses, and, it's concerning to some of my growers, we've got, 12 houses and their livelihood's tied up in those 12 houses and their farm and everything else, so, so thank you.
Should have asked this from Dr. Niles up earlier. How are we coming on getting these bulletins and stuff in different languages? With we talked about the AI when we was in Hot Springs.
Right.
U of A is working on that. I haven't checked in with them, but we'll see where they are. They have people that can do that for us.
Okay,
With our marketing departments.
they working on that.
Okay. That's in the system.
Okay.
One phone call to Dustin Clark, and they said, oh yeah, we can do this.
Okay.
And one last thing before that's not on the report, I just wanted to say, thank you to Kenny. We spent a lot of time together in Madison County, at the Madison County Fairgrounds, taking in the samples for all the companies that were in the control zone to be shipped down here to our laboratory. He was a tremendous help out there. We got that streamlined, got the samples to the lab in a timely fashion so they could be tested. So just want to say thank you, Kenny.
Any other questions? Thank you. All right, next up on the list, looks like some.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Morning, everybody.
You been on? Morning.
You got the live report there in front of you. I'll just go over a few things here from the podium this morning and then try to answer any questions you might have. I always like to give a snapshot of the productivity through the lab, which shows the rolling 12-month average so that you can see for yourselves where we lay in the current month as compared to the year laid out. And I've got the average number, and these are procedures per month. This is what actually ties up the staff in running lab procedures. These procedures may themselves have many, many subtests involved with them. And each of those subtests may in fact test for many, many different analytes. So I think this is the best number, but as soon as you try to put a number on a measurement of a lab, you've got it wrong. You left it. So this is the one measure I think is the best compromise. Our new brick saline procedure is gaining in popularity. What this means is that a lot of testing that was going out of state is now staying in the state of Arkansas because the saline procedure does not require an incubation that the end pouch requires for the kit. We chop 48 hours off of the turnaround time right from the get-go. So real happy with the way that new test is working out. We also do some work for Little Rock Zoo. Happy to rekindle that relationship on testing exotics for them. That mostly went into our bacteriology section there. So happy to report on that support we provide to Little Rock Zoo. We continue to test wildlife for Game and Fish Commission, especially referring to the memorandum of understanding that we have for chronic wasting disease. Of course, we are past the big surge, which coincides with modern gun season. So samples are coming in dribs and drabs right now. Due to changed legislation, the Arkansas Racing Commission is testing right at 100% of the thoroughbred mortalities that occur in the state. So we, our equine necropsy service has increased with that program. We're happy to lend support to the Racing Commission. Obviously, it's an important source of revenue for the state. So glad to support that. We are in the midst. This being a Thursday, I think if you were to walk downstairs, you would actually see our aquaculture testing taking place right now. And so that
We service 37 premises, 37 farms in the state of Arkansas, 27 outside the state of Arkansas. So get about 22,000 or so fish a year through that program. Still supporting, you've heard a lot of mention this morning of companion animal support to the state of Arkansas. And we continue to offer support through test procedures, in this case, for a shelter in Little Rock. And then participating in the One Health inspection. We actually don't do rabies testing here in the department. We do the necropsy to get the brain extracted and sent down the street to the health department where they do it. So that involves the Department of Health, Public Health Veterinarian, a very good working relationship with them. As we mentioned, the uptick that may be coming our way on AI, it's just prudent to discuss that this morning. I wanted just to make a few very brief points about the ins and outs of what goes on in the laboratory and what can affect the results, the turnaround times, and this sort of thing. So I listed out just a few peculiarities of our non-SOP that we get promulgated directly to us from NVSL in Ames, Iowa, and have to follow without deviation. One thing that's a little bit unusual is that when it comes to a non-PCR procedure, there is no no CT cutoff value. There is no value at which we say, oh, that's such a weak positive, we're going to attribute it to background noise. If we get any amplification, if we get any CT number, then that gets reported out. But you can see we've got a couple of options. For a CT, a cycle threshold of 35 and greater, you'll see that we can forward that to NDSL as a suspect positive, or we can re-extract and retest it in the lab. So nothing's gone wrong. We are provided with that capability by the SOP to reassess this extremely weak positive. These CT numbers are like golf scores. The higher the number, the worse your gain is. So a lower CT value is a much, much hotter sample. So the CT is a very, very high number. And if you look there at the last bullet point, when you're reporting a CT value of 35, that means you have essentially doubled something 35 times. And if you're only 90%, if instead of getting 2 copies each amplification, you only get 1.9 copies, 1.9 to the 35th power is 5.7 billion. So we're amplifying the heck out of these things by the time you get to those kind of numbers. So that's why they're treated with some suspicion. Okay, on the second major topic under this, specimens with high concentrations. You may recall this is one of the hottest viruses that we had ever seen back in last March. And specimens with high concentrations of target RNA. I like how this is not my wording. It's good. I wish it were my wording, but targets with high concentration of target RNA may demonstrate atypical amplification and require an adjustment. So this means these really, really hot viruses can really require you to look at your procedure and may cause you to have to repeat some controls before you report out. Now, these kit tests that we buy have a number of positive controls and negative controls, and controls fail. That's why you have controls. And there are publications in the open literature by personnel working at NDSL that actually report failed controls, not just when it works, but when it doesn't. So that's an ordinary average day in the lab. Just so you know, the department kits use the AgPath ID one-step kit, which is a handy kit because it not only tests for the influenza matrix, but it also can subtype for the H5 and H7. It also does Newcastle disease testing and exotic Newcastle, which is the belogenic strain.
So that's the test kit that we use at the main home lab and at the branch lab in Fayetteville. We use the same test kit. All right, let's move on to outreach. This is always my favorite part. Had a real nice lab tour by the state director of the minorities. I'm sorry. Let me back up. We had a real nice tour about the minorities, agriculture, natural resources, and related sciences matters. That was back in November. Presented at the Farm Bureau Winter Commodity Meeting. We also had a very nice producers workshop out in Roanoke, except for that was one of our snow days, and so everyone had trouble getting to that meeting. We presented the Arkansas Veterinary Medical Association like we always do, and we did have the Arkansas Director of the National Winter in Agriculture to tour the lab. Grants, networks, and accreditations, you've seen this a lot. Most things are intact without change. I did want to go to the very last point, and that is our accreditation by the American Association for Laboratory Accreditation, AQLA, is renewed through December of 2024. Any questions?
This is just a kind of curiosity question. Like a drug test and stuff at the racetrack, you gotta do that or just what's the racing?
That is subcontracted out to an out-of-state lab. Okay, sure is. Mr. Chairman, permission for a personal remark. Sure. All right, well, this will be my last presentation of this group. I will be retiring in July. I've been talking to you guys all along. So it's been my pleasure to report to this group and to work with all the different programs that you heard described this morning. Kenny, I'm right with you. This is our nation's food supply. This is important, high consequence work that we do here, and it's been a privilege to contribute to. Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, moving through to livestock, field and markets.
Morning again, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'll try to bring it forward. I've included in your packet the numbers for this past quarter. It's kind of, I went ahead and included the 22 numbers. You can see there that we kind of were up earlier in the quarter a little bit and kind of slacked off, but we're still kind of ahead of where we were last year. I didn't really, when I first started putting those numbers together, I didn't quite how all those were going to come together with prices being up, and we have had some pretty good sales here lately. You can kind of see the older cattle, and it's not a super great gauge, but it is a gauge. You know, they're where we were recording IDs at the market of 18-month and older cattle. Those are up quite a bit from last year. So I would say with the slaughter cow prices and stuff being up, people are doing some heavier culling. So we are seeing some more numbers to the markets there. And one thing, I don't know if I've specified in the past, and I apologize, so I'm going to include that on my next report. When I'm reporting the calves vaccinated there and stuff like that, that is just the inspectors. That's not the accredited veterinary numbers. So I was surprised on that because obviously there is a lot of stuff going to town, prices being better, but our vaccinations were actually up quite a bit this quarter from this time last year, which we did have some pretty bad weather last February too, that really knocked our numbers back a little bit. Everything else pretty much the same. Obviously, we keep seeing the sheep and goats are just growing and growing and growing. So any questions on as far as the market numbers?
Like those calves vaccinated or just heifers being.
Yeah, we're at 12 months of age. Yeah, just our normal cat food. And basically the veterinarians are doing roughly about that same amount, maybe a little less. We're usually about with the total number at the end of the year. We've actually seen some actually come up on the veterinarian number, surprisingly, because for a while we were a pretty good hit of them, but now we're starting to see a bounce where we're about half and half, but the final number like I said, these here are what we're doing. Kind of bouncing off that, I'm talking about the sheep and goats. I'm gonna go ahead and into, I did want to give you an update on, I know at Hot Springs, I did kind of give you a quick update on market news reporting. We did kind of avoid there with Nikki Pearson retiring because he did quite a bit of that workforce at Thurston and Cleveland County and all that. We did feel that. We hired Mindy Sloan. She's been with us reporting for about a month now. That's going really well. And she's covering Searcy, Cleveland County, Ash Flat. And then this month has started, she's gonna be covering the BB goat, sheep and goat sale. We're trying to get some more sheep and goat numbers in there. We started back in January covering Salem for the sheep and goats, and that's going really well. David Gilbert, one of our inspectors, is doing that one. So we're trying to get some more sheep and goat numbers besides just Salem to kind of show more of a trend. Along with that, David's also going to be picking up Hilltop there at Romance. They're sheep and goat only. They're not a real big sale, but they have. The main reason we were looking at that was they are pretty much always farm fresh there. They don't have repeat stuff as much. And that's not saying that's a stipulation, but we did like trying to get those numbers of stuff coming straight from the farm. So we're gonna be market reporting them one Saturday a month just to get another sheep and goat sale into that rotation. With those transitions on the market reporting, we do have Charlotte back online. Nikki had been doing the special sales they were having there, but now we're reporting their weekly sale along with the special. So kind of be watching for that. And then also we hired Jake Milam as a part-time. He's doing Glenwood. So we got Glenwood back covered full-time too. So you'll see that if you watch the market report on our website or the USDA site, you'll see a lot of those coming back online. We had a little bit of a void there with some employee transitions there for a little while. Been a lot going on last quarter. Obviously, everybody's been talking about a lot of sick bird calls. We're still assisting with that. I'm glad Kevin mentioned that about the hatcheries. That has been pretty crazy since COVID because we got off that. We couldn't go into the plants, get all that done. So it's really nice that we think if nothing happens, we're going to be back on schedule this year to get it at the normal time of doing that. So we're excited about that. Cody's here today. We do appreciate him. We attended all the ACA spring conferences. We had a lot of good contacts there. We had inspectors at all those meetings and distributed some materials and stuff and made some contacts for tags and different things like that. Patrick may mention it. We attended the LMA annual conference, I guess back in March. That went really well. Had some good, their head guy out of or the regional guy for them came up out of Texas and had their annual conference, and we met with them and had some good conversations there. And then of course, just normal, we are checking events. We've had, several requests for EI verifier classes at this time of year. We have checked several events. Those have gone well. We did check PBR a while back. Everything was fine. That one's one of the funner ones because we get to see some different stuff. We don't always get to check and do stuff. And of course, if you're interested, it's this weekend in Andrea, the wild horse and burro sale will be at Searcy if you need to go get you a Mustang. So, and everything has held papers and Coggins because Niles has got all the paperwork on.
For those bulls have to have electronic ID tag.
Some of them do. If not, we do it off brand. It's just because obviously some of them don't want stuff in the ears anymore. As much as the bigger bulls move, most of them just have they go ahead and have an 840 tag in them and then they don't have to worry about it. And then they just scan them. Because obviously if they're in the truck and stuff, sometimes those brands are hard to read, which, as much as they move, they usually are always good on the paperwork. Where we've had some issues in the past and it wasn't a huge issue. It was just if they had a qualifier event where they might not be having the top bulls come in, they might be inviting more local stuff to come in to buck some bulls. They're not used to moving as much, so they might not have, their TV test and all that kind of stuff. So, but, the guy that move around a lot, we've got a contact with PBR and he's really good about, they have to send all the paperwork in because obviously they don't want stuff coming in, putting with the $100,000 bucking bull that, got drug out and we've got Bruce Lewis's TV and what he, so, they're pretty good about staying on top of it, but we do like to check in with them, plus just keep that contact going there, because sometimes they have to house them when they're usually. The last 2 years, like if they have them at Simmons, they can't keep them down here, so they'll keep them like at Damascus at the sale barn, and then they'll haul them back and forth depending on how the event goes. Free tags, and want to kind of give an update on that, going really well. We did actually make some contacts at the spring conferences. We still have those available. Excited to be working with some big producers. Been sending a lot to Scott Standridge. He's been using the mess out of them. We've been working with Subton that's now running, former Windrock or Beach Fork. Surprisingly enough, as much as they do interstate movement, they didn't have a lot of electronic technology, so we're helping with them. We've got Lauren T. And Justin Manning and some others working with them, showing them what the technology can do. We've already they're basically wanting to put tags in all their cows. We've done a lot of heifers for them and stuff, and we're showing them how they can enter it, keep the data and stuff and all that. So they're super excited about that. And we've done 2 or 3 other big producers in Carroll County and Washington County, some others. So there's definitely some interest there. We've got plenty of tags. So and it don't matter if you got 10 heifers you want to do, we'll do it. I mean, it's just whatever.
Refreshing on the dates, like, there's not a drop dead day
There on what?
on like, everything's going.
Well, that's back to what Niall was saying. We're still waiting for the part 86 to come out with what, basically, we were supposed to have something now, and they pushed that comment period back another 30 days. You know, right now, what we're doing is we've got the free tags, and we're just trying to help the guys to show them what the technology can do for them. Obviously, the benefit for if we have a disease outbreak or something is you've already got that official tag number, so we can help speed up the process of keeping everything moving, and we know where stuff's at. But obviously, it's gotta be a benefit to the producer, as y'all know. I mean, you know, and that's what we're trying to show. And luckily, we've been able to buy this equipment and stuff, you know, we're able to help some guys, because we've actually surprisingly, it's been surprising me, and I know I've told y'all this, but you know, we've got some smaller producers that's really excited about it. And so some of the ones that are trying to do butchers and cattle and do different things, they're loving the record keeping component where they can scan it in and see weight gains and things like that.
So do these larger guys, they buy their own readers?
Usually, we've had several that after they saw ours the first time, they went and bought one. But yes, but we had, and like I said, that's why we're trying to get more and more with the grants, because we do have them available here. If you want to borrow one, we can definitely help you out. And even the inspectors can come out and show you how to use them or loan one. But we're trying to get enough where veterinarians need to borrow one, or extension agent, whoever, we've got them available. And we've got several right now, but we're trying to get more. We're trying to put a classroom set together so we can go around and kind of show some of the FFA chapters and stuff, just to help educate them a little bit more what the purpose of it is. It's not just government trying to, you know, because we tell people all the time, if the federal government wants to know how many cows you got, they're gonna find out, and they already know anyway. So I'm joking.
That's the big.
Strike that from the media, but I'm just saying that people get hung up on that, and it's like, y'all don't understand how.
In my country, that'll get them riled up.
But I'm still saying, I don't know how important it is if we have that good D hit tomorrow and we're on 72-hour lockdown plus, it's gonna be, we need those tags to help. I know it's only one component, but that's a huge component. You know, and it depending on if it's hitting on a sale day or something like that, and we've got a sale barn locked down, it's like nothing's moving out here for 2 weeks. That's gonna be a nightmare for that barn owner trying to keep everything fed. Bulls not fighting and all that kind of stuff until we get everything moving again. So
How much are those readers?
it depends. You can get a very simple one for like $100, but it literally will only tell you the tag number. If you get a good quality one that you can Bluetooth to your scales, Bluetooth to every other thing, you're looking at about $1,500 for a good one. Now, if you want to go advanced, you know, like Eric Walker and some of those guys that have been doing it for a long time, they already have like, I call it the scale head, but the big one, that unit, and you can set flags in there. You can program it for your vaccinations. So basically you program it in there, what the dosage is. And as soon as they hit the scale, it'll already figure out what you need to draw up and put there, you can flag cows, so when she comes back through, when you break this one, do whatever, I mean, there's a lot of.
Sky's the limit then.
Guys, yeah.
You can, and it'll hold as much historical data as you want. And like I say, you can go back and forth with your computer, so you get home and do extra work and stuff, but it's pretty cool what it will do. And like I said, we're just trying to have that available, because I know that is pricey, because if you look at the big head unit, like I call it, now those are gonna be about $5,000. But for somebody that's moving a lot of cattle, in the long run, it's gonna pay for itself. And it automatically logging and showing, it was already, you could print out, like if you ran feeders or something, you ran them through this time, you can already for your daily gain right there. And if you want to set flags in there to where it says, you know, this one didn't gain enough, you can kick her a different way. It'll automatically tell you right there, shoot side, what you need to do. So anyway.
Is that what you got?
No. Well, like I said, it'll be like-
We do have stuff available, because like I say, it started just the hand reader, and we have those available if you want to play with it. Because like I say, you can shoot that into Excel spreadsheet. That's what we're doing on the farm now, even for small producers. If we're vaccinating heifers and they want something, you know, we can do it and Bluetooth it to their phone right there. So we can, basically, when we're done, we email them a spreadsheet with all their tag numbers, and we usually don't sit there and add a lot, because if we're using a small reader, it's hard to type a bunch in, but we can at least get them started, because we can scan that, put their tag number in and what it was, and then that's kind of their start, or, because we can pre-program stuff too. Lauren's really good at it. We rely on him because he's done a lot of studying on it, and I know y'all talked to him a little bit, but you put a lot of pre-programmed stuff in there that day too, just like your vaccinations. If you're giving them 7-way, blah, 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 all that, we can already do preload that to say we're gonna work these today, and it's putting that all in there for you already.
I've always told our folks, the data is worth its weight in gold.
And like I say, and we've done, you know, I kind of talked about that before too, well, when Nikki was still here, and we're still gonna do that, because we're gonna do some outreach efforts with her. And I talked to Daryl, that's almost a joke for Daryl's board the other day, because we were talking about how moving forward, that can be valuable for the producers, because if they can provide that spreadsheet, even if it's just 40 calves or something, to the sale barn owner, if they're going to sell, not loading a pot, that allows him data that he can give to buyers to help get the buyer there to purchase their calves and bring it for a better price. So we're trying to help educate that. And like I say, the official ID is the important part for us for disease control. We know that, but it's got to be a benefit to the producer.
Yeah.
Sorry, spent more time on that project, but I appreciate your questions and interest. I definitely do. Speeding up a little bit, I did work with Dr. Blake a while back. Excited about that. Jerry Masters was putting on a show clinic at Russellville. They had about 300 participants on show hogs on that. So she actually did the animal health component. Dr. Blake's the veterinarian for JBS in Arkansas. Great lady. And we worked with her. So it was just mainly helping, you know, people understand a little bit about biosecurity, the threats of ASF, and like I've said before, I keep preaching it, but we're starting to see the dadgum pet pigs being drove through to these fairgrounds, and it scares me. And I know you scared some of the poultry guys for years, but if something's gonna get fed a meat product, it's probably gonna be something in somebody's living room. And then drove to the fairgrounds, and we got high dollar show hogs there, and on and on. It just, there's so many things, and back to what I was saying about Kenny earlier, and we've talked about this so many times, people, and y'all know this, that stuff moves internationally so much now. And people don't realize that even just the cattle see every week. I mean, we get cattle from Montana and all kinds of places every week. It's sell barns in Arkansas, but most people wouldn't think that, you know, so stuff moves fast nowadays, and y'all know that. Y'all are all producers, you know, and we can spread something around pretty quick. Couple of other events been to, Andrea actually did a STEM class down at El Dorado for 6th grade girls. That went really good, and kind of showed them some of the stuff of what we do and all that. She also participated in the Women in Ag conference, so we was proud of that. Sorry. I don't remember if I told you last time or not, Johnny Smith sale at Plummerville actually did make, and so that is a new sale we've got going on at Plummerville. It's just kind of a mixed species. You can go whatever you want to sell type deal, just have a few cattle. And then also, I don't think I reported last time, since then Paragould also shut back down, so just kind of keeping y'all heads up on that. One thing I did want to mention, because we're kind of working on that and we're going to do some more training for the inspectors just to help people understand. We did do some training with a few of the inspectors, Dr. Conger this past month on salmonella. Obviously, we don't necessarily regulate that, but just trying to help get education out there, because we've got so many people getting these backyard chickens and stuff now that's never had birds before, and a lot of misconceptions, and just not taking care, and there's an uptick in salmonella, and everybody automatically thinking the industry, but it's not. It's just these people that are they're not handling birds or eggs right, and they're getting salmonella. They're kissing them, they're not washing their hands, or carrying them in backpacks, they're keeping them in their house, just a lot of different things, and they don't understand that there's some other issues there. It's not that a chicken's dangerous at all, but gotta, obviously take some different precautions than you do with other species of animals. So we're just trying to get some information out there to people that's never owned a bird in their life, but now they're freaking out because egg prices have gone up and they don't understand why. And so they're gonna rush out and buy them some birds, and they need to be thinking about some things and think about how to handle eggs. We're working with Cherry on that, because there's a lot of people that are not taking into consideration eggs that may have laid out on a tailgate for 3 days and 90-degree temps that they might not be safe to eat. And so we're just trying to do some things like that, but also support the industry, because unfortunately the industry sometimes gets pegged with some of these issues, and it's not really always their issue. And one quick thing, and I'm gonna close with this because that's it. We did actually 2 more things, sorry. So a couple of you knew him, but you probably heard Marty Campbell, that was inspector for about 35 or so years. He passed away last month, so he had a long battle with some illnesses. That I just giving y'all heads up in case for some of those that might have not heard, but knew Marty. And then also, I don't think I announced it last one, we have hired Lloyd Clayton. He's going to be a new inspector for us up in the Paragould area. Excited about that. He's hit the ground running, got quite a bit of ag background, and is super excited to learn. And then we just hired Dalton Gilly from Izzard County. Excited to bring him on. He's actually starting Monday. So any questions on my rattling?
Down into egg and poultry.
Good morning. I did want to touch on the table eggs that you're bringing up. So if they have over 3,000 hens, they do have to register with both FDA and USDA. So with USDA, we have to be in there 4 times a year. So that does give us a chance to be in there, see what they're doing, see what kind of, shape their houses are in and their poultry farms and everything are in. So we do have a chance to communicate to Blake and Patrick what's going on in those places. So that does help. Some doesn't do any of the MPI testing, but we do have a chance to check on them that way.
Okay, thank you.
General activities at egg and poultry. This quarter, we did receive notification from USDA AMS on the shell egg export restrictions website. Arkansas is still on there, but we have been removed from some of those restrictions. We can do shipping to some of those outside countries. One of them was Japan, and I believe we can start shipping back to Mexico. Madison County was removed. In January, we received notification for egg handlers. We're going to start sending those notifications out this May, get those updated. We approximately 315 egg handlers every year, so we'll start sending that back out again this year, probably about the beginning of this year. United Egg Producers, they sent us a fact sheet for this year. I've included that on the back of this It's 2 pages, and it goes over the egg prices and how they've been affected this year with IPAC. They also sent me a case study that we've done and the challenges with the transition of cage-free and the support material. It was about 191. I have not included that. If you like it, I'll send it to you. The Food and Drug Administration announced that they will be withdrawing multiple guidance documents that they provided during COVID. One of those was that retail locations, if they needed to, they could change labeling on product at the retail location, they could put a sticker on product. They're withdrawing all of that and go back to regular grading product has to be done at the processing site. So all of that will go back to the way it was before COVID. Tyson Foods, we had some cancellations with grading at their locations. Waldron canceled resident service at their location in January. We've been doing feed grading services there since that time. They're keeping us very busy. They finished one contract just this past week, but we are doing work for them. They had a contract for 570,000 pounds of product. So that kept us very busy. We were there for 2 shifts. Tyson Foods Dardanelle canceled last October, but then after working with us for a couple of months on feed grading and the higher price, they went back to resident service. So we have one of our employees back in there full time. And then Tyson Berry Street has canceled on day shift, but we still have a night shift grader in there. They did announce closures at the Van Buren and the Glen Allen, Virginia facilities, but we do not have any services in there for their food defense audit once a year. School lunch commodities, we did receive notification that Butterball Huntsville has been awarded a contract, 144,000 pounds of product. I think they also have another one coming this month. So same amount. We have a grader in there full time, so he'll do all of that work. It won't be any different for him. Tyson, New Holland, Pennsylvania was awarded a contract for 19.8 million pounds of product, 705 loads. Because of the amount of product that is, they will ship it out to different locations. And some of that has been awarded to us. So we will ship that from Dawn's Cold Storage in Rogers. We don't know the amount that we will be. Auditing in food defense, we have completed 25 food defense audits for this quarter, 2 child nutrition audits. We have not done any of the UEP, United Egg Producers audits yet, but they have been released. We did a refresher course this quarter. Cage-free audits have been released by USDA to start redoing those again this year. They will be a little different this year because there's so many and because you have to go out to the producer's barn. We have modified them a little bit. We'll go to their processing location, meet with them, get mapping, pictures, and then try to schedule them out in several different locations, spread them out so that we're not cross-contaminated with anyone. Makes it a little harder and a little time consuming. We have very few people that do those because of the training that is behind that. We did one label review audit this quarter. And we have done 11 shell egg surveillance visits this quarter. In our volume at the processor, we did 243 million pounds of chicken, 257 million pounds of turkey, 4,000 pounds at the rabbit processor, and 965,000 cases of shell eggs were produced just this quarter. We, at retail in the grocery stores, we inspected 424 retail locations and 57,000 dozen cartons of product, and we had 4 failure to meet grade requirements and 73 dozen cartons placed on stock sale and sent back to their location for reworking. In outreach, we have 2 small farm processors that are intending to start processing. One of those has already reached out to us, and they have applied for their permit, applied for with USDA for grading services, and they have already reached out to FDA. They work with Bible. They calling themselves BSEC, Black Sheep Egg Company. So. So they have already started reaching out to us, and they'll start surveillance of this coming quarter. So they're very nice people. We work with them. They're nice to get along with. And we are receiving a lot of phone calls from individuals, about egg grading, egg washing, raising chicken, everything else. So if you receive any calls, and you really want to talk to, please tell them to reach out to us. We'll be happy to work with them. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. All right, that brings us down into general activity.
Thank you, sir. Just want to recognize Dr. Summers, his retirement. Really appreciate the years of service he's put in. Thank you very much for what you do, what you've done. He's taken on a huge responsibility when we merged all the labs together. That was a pretty good task. Good job. So thank you very much, Mr. Dr. And appreciate our staff and the hard work they've done, this, Davis Quillen and all the efforts. It definitely was a collaborative and coordinated effort with the whole ag department, everybody pitched in, all divisions. So it was really good. We are kind of winding some of those down. We weren't aware of very many livestock or poultry industries being hit. A lot of it was mainly pet, dogs and cats, and so that is our responsibility as well as a ESF 11 function. So we've handled that very well. So appreciate all the hours that Dr. Niles has put in this thing, being at the VOC, the whole weekend. Blake, Corey was phenomenal. Just at the drop of a hat, you'd go do whatever he needed to do. So we appreciate my visit there. And just to hit on Cherry's BSE company, we had sent out a letter last beginning of this year requesting, it's not a requirement, it's not a law, but we did request that anyone that had free range birds or backyard birds that they kind of duck and cover, that they house those birds and undercover, get them out of them, because they are, I agree with you 100% at risk for those birds are flying over. So we sent out a letter asking if they would put those birds inside. Some of the growers were very compliant with that and very willing to do that, because like I said, they have money invested in these birds. So if they lose them, it sits on them, not the company. So there was a little bit of controversy with the company and the contract. Their business model is we want free range, happy birds out in the open. The growers didn't agree with that, so they started confining those birds. That is a result part of the BSE. Someone had come together and they wanted to have that option. If we want to house our birds, then let us house our birds during a threat. So that's where some of that came from with this new company coming in. One more thing on the eggs, we are increasing our surveillance on some of our markets. As you know, egg prices have gone up, so capitalism kicks in and the free market then explodes. So everybody now wants to sell their eggs in the backyard, which causes a little bit of an issue. And I've got some pictures here. That's just an example of what we're seeing out there. Dirty eggs. Not only is that a food safety issue, but that is an avian influenza issue as well. These are duck eggs. They're bringing them out in the open, and everybody's touching them and exposing them. So that's not only food safety, but biosecurity as well. Not labeling correctly. They're using other companies' packages. So if someone gets sick from these dirty eggs, we're going to look at the package and they're going to call whoever's on the package. So we're trying to aggressively address that now as much as we can.
So they're selling those eggs?
They're absolutely selling those eggs.
Don't worry about the ones buying the eggs.
That's another question.
Yeah.
They go from $8 to $12 a dozen. So
They just call them free range and they can sell them.
right, that's that, and they'll have the little placards. There's and Dr. Hewitt can back me up on this, but this community is now they're really sold on the egg bloom. It's this membrane that comes out of the oviduct of the chicken. It forms this membrane that supposedly blocks out any bacteria. So once you wash that egg, you've exposed bacteria to that egg. State law requires that egg be washed in 36 hours, is that right? Of lay, and it has to be, room temp or temperature 45 degrees or below. These in particular, I was actually at this market. They were in a kind of a lean-to metal, shed, not insulated that well. It was probably 85 degrees in there. And they basically just closed the doors and they opened 3 days a week. And those eggs stayed there all week long, cooped up in that. So, but and so we have got some education that we have got to let everybody know that just because you've been told that balloon protects that egg, we've got to really concentrate on some of our education.
I think just turn that over to Homeland Security. Those are weapons of mass.
No.
Yeah.
So we got a challenge there. Animal health, cattle sales are good right now, so we'll ride that train hopefully as long as we can. But really no big, huge issues out there. But we are trying to take advantage of the number of ear tags that we've gotten from USDA, several 100,000 that we've got in our warehouse. So we're trying to promote that as much as we can. Those are completely free before Part 86 does come into effect, and producers will start having to purchase those themselves. Another educational opportunity for us there. And then we have, as Blake had mentioned, we've increased our market news reporting. We are back up to the number of markets reporting that was under US or U of A when they were reporting. They were reporting 13 markets throughout the state. However, one of those was actually in Oklahoma, so we didn't really count that one. So we're up to 12 markets now. We're trying to highlight some of the goat and sheep markets, because that is a huge growing industry right now. So we've got 2 that we're reporting at those markets. So pretty good success there. So really proud of what we've done this quarter. So with that, as we all know, legislation ended just a week ago. Pretty active legislation session. There's a lot of things that come through there. Some, however, may affect or will affect us as a division as well as the commission. So I'm just going to go through just a couple of those that directly affect us at this point. House Bill 1676. I think Dr. Niles had mentioned the issue that we're having with canine brucellosis. Cases have increased, and we saw a problem there. So there was in this bill, basically there's some language change there, but the most important thing was addressing the issue with positive dogs. Because usually what we see, most of the cases, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Niles, have been at some of these kennels or breeding facilities. Very rarely will we get a case of canine from an individual. So these are usually coming from these breeding facilities. When they get tested positive, the old law just required that they be neutered or sterilized before they're adopted out. The case that we've run into a couple of times is that, yes, they could be either sterilized or euthanized. We want to make sure that any of those animals, even though they've been spayed or neutered, do not leave that facility until it's been tested again. Because it is a bacteria. That bacteria could remain, for example, in a male, it could remain in that prostate for a little while, or maybe in pregnancy of the system of the female dog as well. So we want to make sure, because this is a zoonotic disease, we don't want to take any risk of spreading that, especially to other animals or humans. So that was added in the rule of the law itself, is that has to be further testing before they can be adopted out. Okay, House Bill 1677. Perkins is here with us today. He's instrumental in helping us with this. This is the amending the law regarding livestock running at large. For several years now, we have taken on a lot of complaints, a lot of issues with cattle being on someone else's property, breaking through. We know that happens. It's just inevitable. It's going to happen at some point. But there is some cases that continue on over and over again. So we want to make sure we address that. This law dates back 100 years. So there's some very archaic, very complicated language back when railways were the main transportation of cattle across the country, as well as fencing districts. So we've eliminated much of that. We give the landowner an opportunity, as up until now, up until when this will be effective, the primary contact with the landowner has been animal control or law enforcement. Well, today, there's just really not a whole lot of animal control in that county. And local law enforcement are not equipped with dealing with this. They can write a check or write a ticket and be done with it, but that usually does not handle the situation. So they're definitely not equipped, but this will give landowners an opportunity to report to the department. It gives the department an opportunity for any kind of administrative penalties, and a way to give that landowner, if it's a continued problem, a way of impounding those animals and selling them and be protected because there's a reporting system put in place. So we feel like that will help, but the majority of this has been really beneficial for both sides to address some of the issues that we've identified. And stop me if you have any questions, please. House Bill 1788. This is concerning the egg marketing law. This is another old archaic law, 1969. And there was a lot of holes in this that we tried to fill, one of those being some of the things that we addressed just a moment ago. Take, for example, some of these cartons. If these cartons are out of date, before someone could take those eggs out of that carton, put them in another carton that's in date. And so we didn't have a way of monitoring that. We do now. We also have some authority to retain or destroy product if we go into a cooler and that cooler has been at above 45 degrees for a certain amount of time. We can dispose of those eggs. And then with today's change in sales and marketing, there's a lot of delivery with eggs now. You can call Walmart, Kroger, get your groceries delivered. The law in the past required that if you delivered those eggs, they had to be in a refrigerated unit. So we've made that change so that there's definitely still a requirement that those eggs be maintained at 45 degrees or below. But you can do it with cool packs, as long as you don't have wet ice and the eggs are wet and soggy when they get there. So we've opened that door just a little bit to kind of open it up for today's times, so to speak. Okay, and then the last one, we'll just briefly go through again. Session just ended. There's a lot of things we do not know at this point as far as how we're going to administer or maintain or develop and work some of these programs. But we will tell you what's in the law itself. And that's 403. That is the law where it consolidated or eliminated or abolished some of the boards and commissions. As far as the department, we've taken 16 boards and commissions and consolidated these down to the 4 existing main commissions that we have now. As far as the Livestock and Poultry Commission, how it will affect this commission will be is we go from 7 members to 9 members. Those 9 members will serve 5 years. With the exception of the current members on staff, they will, on the commission, you will finish out your term. But anyone that the seat's being refilled, that will start a 5-year term. We'll have a 4-member subcommittee addressing the Veterinary Medical Examination Board, investigation complaints, because there are 2 boards that will be consolidated in the commission. That's the Milk Stabilization Board and the Arkansas Veterinary Medical Examination Board. Those are merged now into the commission. So that subcommittee will be made up of 2 of the members that's on the commission, which are veterinarians. In the past, there's been no requirements of who or what industry you sit on, i.e., we don't have to have 3 cattle, 2 poultry. With this, there is now a requirement to have 2 veterinarians on the commission. Those 2 veterinarians will serve on the committee with 2 additional committee or 2 additional members that will be actually appointed by the commission.
Is that small animal vets or is it just any vet in general?
The two that will serve will be on the commission. The other 2 will be small animal vets.
Yeah, the one on the commission, of course, of the 2 veterinarians on the commission, one of those has to be
large animal or food supply.
Thank you.
And then the subcommittee that will be created for the chairman, just want the two additional, as Patrick said, those two additional will be small.
So you're gonna have on the commission, 2 veterinarians put on, added to it, right?
That's correct.
Making it 9.
Make it 9,
The subcommittee, you're gonna bring 2 more veterinarians.
for a total of 4 on the subcommittee.
But they're not fishing.
He can't represent the vet board. He's already seated. That two new.
It doesn't specify.
Can he count as one vet?
That's not, it doesn't specify, just 2 veterinary. With the exception of a large animal veterinary,
Well, it says large animal or food supply.
food supply, yeah. The request for having 2 small animal on the subcommittee was to address the majority of complaints and issues that come in are from clinics.
Is that subcommittee only 4 members, so all 4 vets?
At least 1 member.
Okay.
The chair could elect or appoint more if
And be producers from the countryside.
Right.
Director Fisher, you're gonna have to add commissioners,
2 more.
2 more, one being a vet, or at least.
Yes, no, two being the vet.
Well,
Yeah, well, absolutely.
So one would have to be.
That's right.
We just gotta keep that.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it's gonna end up being 9 members, so.
9 members.
Pull another vet, it'd be another producer of some sort.
That's right. Chairman Kaufman has rolled off officially, January 14th. He still serves until he's reappointed. So really, we have 3 open seats at this point.
We don't know when
Or
reappointment,
Sir?
we don't know when that's gonna happen, that reappointment
No, sir.
of Chairman Goff.
No, sir. This rule will be in effect on July 1st. Right.
Patrick, is there anything with, because the dairy stabilization board's going away?
The board has been abolished, but the responsibilities have been rolled into this commission.
So we have any plans to try to bring on a dairyman? Because I
Again,
guarantee you, nobody in this table
Right.
knows anything about dairy.
Again,
I think that was just one
I
other
do.
addition to the law there.
I've got a can.
You know,
Didn't like.
the law formerly says that members just had to represent livestock and poultry industry, and so they said now it'll be livestock, dairy, and poultry. You know, you could specifically have a dairy person on the board, but it doesn't specifically say that you have, one member has to be dairy.
Because dairy is a different animal. I mean, when I get on the dairy committee, it's more complicated than beef or anything else.
Well, I can tell you as high as milk is, my 3 drink 12 gallon a week. We may have us a Guernsey or something and start milking again.
all right, Mr. Chairman, if there's no more questions, that's all I have.
Is anything in that deal elevate us to like what we see on Yellowstone?
Lord of mercy.
Yeah.
25, we'll talk.
Yeah, I'm thinking no is.
Yeah.
That's just me. Wes will have more at the next meeting. Okay, so those were the general agency activities. Do you have any old business to tend to? Anything to go through? Not hearing any, let's move down into new business. Hearing any of that, we'll keep rolling. Date for next commission meeting. So thought process.
We could, Cody's here, we could, if with his permission, do like we did last year, we could have it at the ACH commission in July.
Senior birthday. Yeah,
That'd be great for us.
a nod coming from the back. And that will be
23rd?
28th.
July
So
28th.
Friday the 28th.
And the location of that?
Does that work for all y'all? Okay, not hearing any complaints or rocks being thrown at me. We can set it for July 28th, that will work. At the Convention Center in Hot Springs, Cattlemen's Association. We'll have our meeting. Any other business to get into there, we exit? I want to personally note to Kenny again, thank you for 44 years, my friend. Thank you. Dr. Summers, you're too young, tired. So you have something you're going to that's of value there. So, hearing no other business, consider it adjourned.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Minutes fine, just like I do.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Do what you can while you can.
That's right.
There.
Well, when they came up. I have names.
Recording stopped.